The chapter begins in a quiet town as two old men passing by a Louis mention one of them notes that he has seen the geezer and his daughter in a quiet while, asking if they are alright. The other reassures him, mentioning that the old man still shows his face at the window whenever asked, and his daughter is spotted from time to time. Inside the mansion, passing a suit of armor guarding the stair, we find Tomie. She sits across the old man, playfully flashing her hand in a water tank. Suddenly, Tomie's curiosity piques and asks if she can bring her Tsukiko to the house. The old man agrees, saying he would like to meet her. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Tsukiko, who has moved away with her family. She received a letter from her best friend Machiko, revealing that their classmate Yamadaki has been vanished from the hospital and is nowhere to be found. As Tsukiko reads the memory she tries so hard to burn, come rushing back. Something terrible happened in her old town, and it's all about a girl named Tomie. Clutching the letter, Tsukiko decides she can't just sit around, she has to see Machiko immediately. She is in disbelief that Yamadaki could vanish into thin air. As she walked, the dark realization hit her. This has to be Tomie doing. It fit the pattern perfectly. Yamadaki was obsessed with falling for her over and over again. Suddenly, a sport car screeched to her beside her. The door opened, and there is she, Tomie. Seeing her, Tsukiko is paralyzed with fear, breaking into cold sweat. She tried to ignore her and keep walking, but Tomie called her out from behind. Hey, you are not running, are you? That's not like you, Tsukiko. Tsukiko snapped back, telling Tomie she had nothing to say to her. But Tomie, with her usual cold confidence, played her trump card. Is that so? Then I guess you don't want to see Yamadaki. Tsukiko is shocked. She knew it. Tomie is behind the disappearance. Tomie casually mentioned that Yamadaki is at her place, but he's in trouble state. He's become so thin and fragile that she's afraid he might snap if she even looked at him. She added that he'd been asking for her, then gave a final ultimatum. So, you coming or not? Confused and desperate, Tsukiko hesitated. Tomie began to drive off, calling out, don't say I didn't ask you. See ya. With no other choice and need to save her friend, she gets into the car and they both head toward the mysterious mansion, Tomie home. It isn't long before they arrive. Tomie stands before the massive imposing mansion with air of cold confidence. She looks at Tsukiko and asks, what do you think? Tsukiko can hardly hide her surprise. The scale of the estate is unlikely anything she expected. Once inside, Tomie calls out to her father, announcing that she is home with a visitor. The old man greets Tsukiko warmly, claiming they've been waiting for her. He mentions that Tomie has told him all about her extraordinary talent for photography. The old man picks up the camera, admiring it. He says he's fascinated by the photos Tsukiko took of his daughter, claiming her eyes for the detailed border on the free natural. His side lamenting that his own photo never turned out quite as well. Tsukiko's heart stops. She recognized the camera immediately. That was stolen from my room. She kinda cries, demanding to know how he got it. But the old man simply dodged the question, casually suggesting, what do you say, want to fire it again? Tomie immediately shut the idea down, clearly uninterested in being the subject of more photos. Then, despite Tsukiko begged them, tell me where Yamadaki is, please just let him go. Tsukiko burst into a loud mocking laugh. Why the heck could he be here? She sneered. What good is he to me? Tsukiko began to sweat, her voice trembling. But you said he was here. Tomie just giggled. You really think I care that much about any man? The old man stepped in to explain his daughter's nature. He tells Tsukiko that Tomie sees men as no more than adornment. She doesn't want to be loved, she only wants to be desired to feed her own massive ego. She reads men on just to see how far they will go. Then his tone turned clinical and dark. He explained that when a man falls too far and too hard for Tomie, he eventually succumbs to a dark urge to cut her to pieces. He admits he's fascinated by what causing this reaction. He revealed a horrifying secret. Every time she is killed, she began to multiply against her will. But lately there has been a new terrifying twist. When faced with extra psychological trauma, Tomie has begun to split on her own accord. A double will literally emerge from her own cranium. He revealed that his day-to-day research is now focused on finding a way to stop her from multiplying altogether. Tomie sitting casually in her chair, pointing toward a large glass jar. Isn't this part of the experiment too, father? She asked mockingly. As Tsukiko looked toward the container, her blood ran cold. Tomie reached over and slowly lifted the lid of the jar, revealing the nightmare within. Floating in the water is a severed head with two faces already beginning to split and multiply. Tsukiko stands there, almost spineless with fear, staring at the physical proof of the old man's twisted experiment. The old man pointed toward the jar too, his voice filled with a twisted pride. He explained that the acid prevents the head from developing further. Yet Tomie's regeneration power is so immense that she can withstand the solution. He turned toward a trembling Tsukiko and asked, isn't it incredible? Tsukiko began to back away slowly toward the door, her heart hammering against her ribs. But the old man followed her, cornering her. He made a horrifying request. He wants Tsukiko to lend a hand in his research. He proposed injecting her with Tomie's bloody fluid and other questionable substance to see how she reacts. He called it a challenge, but to Tsukiko it's a death sentence. While Tsukiko struggled desperately with the locked door, Tomie is playfully pressing her hand in the way as they hold the severed head. The old man warned her to cover the ball, shouting that the vapor will burn their throat. Tomie stand up, as still dripping from her hand, and walked toward them. She's bold. She reminds her father that they'd done this before, asking him how long he planned to chase this rabbit, and reminding him of what happened to the last girl. The old man begged for patience, promising he will cure her soon. But Tomie has it enough. I'm sick of this, she sneered. I only needed to go this path because I thought it was amusing. She tells him it's time to quit the act, mocking his get-up and calling him shy. Then a flash of violence, she pressed her SSO hand directly onto the old man's face. He screamed in agonizing pain, clutching his melting features. As the old man collapsed, frantically tried to feel the sacred acid from his skin, Tsukiko sees a split-second window to escape. She's bored, but Tomie's voice cut through the scream like a laser. Wake up, the reaction is instant. The empty suit of armor doesn't just move, it convulses. The rusty joints scream and pop as supernatural force jerks the metal to life. The helmet pivots with a shaken and mechanical grind, looking onto Tsukiko just as she passes. In a blur of cold steel, the giant lunges. Tsukiko feels a wind of the blade as she near dodges a lateral swing that shattered the floorboard, where she just stood a heartbeat before. Panic cries, Tsukiko screamed for the staircase. Behind her, Tomie stands over the written old man, pointing a dry finger toward upstairs. After her, she shrieks. The armor pursuit is slow, heavy, and terrifyingly inevitable. Each step is a different crash that vibrates through the wood. Tsukiko reached the upper floor, her lungs burning and dry behind a corner just as the metal head cleared the top steps. She pressed herself against the wall, trembling and watching the shadow of the armored giant loom over the hallway. It hasn't spotted her yet, but is searching, clinging forward with cold mechanical precision. Every second feels like an hour. Desperate to get off the open hallway, Tsukiko noticed a door to her right, left slightly ajar. She slipped inside, eating the door shutter with shaking hand until the latch clicked. The heavy clinking of the armor muffled by the wood, leaving her in thick, suffocating silence. As Tsukiko's eyes adjust to the room, the relief of finding a room vanished. Across the floor, a dim light glint of heavy iron bar. A cage. Inside, an old man huddled in the dark, his face a roadmap of exhaustion and terror. When Tsukiko bleated as who is and why he looked away, his rasping voice delivered a chilling blow. I am the master of this house, and the man you met downstairs is impostor. The scene shifted downstairs, where the truth is finally laid bare. Tomie stands over the father figure, but the carrot is over. The wrinkled elder mask lies discarded on the floor like a dead skin. As the man turns, the face of the old master is gone, replaced by the cold younger feature of Mr. Takagi. Dang! Tomie sneered at him, her voice dripping with suspicion. I wonder if you really mean to heal me, she mocked, or if you have a hidden agenda. In response, Takagi doesn't argue. He simply begins to giggle a low, unsettling sound that echoed through the room. Meanwhile, on the upper floor, the heavy clink of the armor continued. Escorting every corner, a hollow shell searching for Tsukiko's life. Back in the prison room, the true master began to recount the nightmare that stolen his life. It started in the early summer, on the night when the sky wouldn't stop thundering. A young woman appeared at the door, drenched to the bone and looking for the shelter. My daughter was the one who opened the door, he whispered, his voice trembling. She felt pity, she let her in. But as the woman stepped into the light, she revealed she wasn't alone. Standing behind her was a man who doesn't speak a single word. A man with eyes so abnormal that made my skin crawl. I should have drawn them away, he laments, but it was too late. Overnight, the strangers staged a silent cuff. They sealed the house, imprisoned the family, and began wearing their faces like costumes. Now, night after night, they use my house to do their godless research. As the heavy clink of the armor echoed in the hallway, a sudden earth-shaking rumble vibrated through the wall. Tsukiko looked toward the ceiling, thinking it's thunder, but the master face failed. It started again, he croaked, his voice trembling with grief. There is no thunder, it's the groom of my daughter, all her rage and all her sorrow. He explained the horrible truth. The demon used his lovely daughter for their experiment, twisting her into something unrecognizable. Run, he pleaded. If they catch you, it isn't even worth thinking about. Suddenly, the door erupts. The armor has found her. In the shadow of the room, it takes a moment to calibrate, but then it lunges, its broadsword whistling through the air. Tsukiko drives out of the way, screaming past the metal armor and bolting back into the hallway. She ran until her lung burned, but her leg hit a wall, literally a dead end. The heavy rhythmic footsteps of the armor drew closer, cornering her. In a moment of desperate bravado, Tsukiko tried to lift a heavy ceramic fork to use as a weapon, but it's too much for her. The armor reached out with a cold iron gauntlet, effortlessly snatching the fork from her hand and shattering it against the wall. Tsukiko sank into the corner, paralyzed as the hollow executioner raised its blade for the final strike. But the impact of the shattered fork did more than just break the silence. It struck the heavy chain door of a sealed room, snapping the lock. The door began to crack open slowly, organizingly. From the darkness, a massive swallow head emerged. It had the face of Tomie, but strong, blistered, and oversized. Then come another head, and another. A second cluster of Tomie faces all fused together, spilling out into the hallway like a biological landslide. Tsukiko was frozen in a waking nightmare as the total true form is fully revealed. A massive pale worm-like tail dragged behind a writhing tangle of multiple torsos and head. Long jagged nails kept against the floor as the abomination lunged with supernatural strength, pinning the metal giant against the wall and lifting it clear of the floor. The daughter began to choke the life out of the suit, her eyes fixed on the prey that once thought it was the hunter. A sickening metal screech echoed through the hallway as the creature's elongated finger dug into the neck of the suit. With a violent jerk, the helmet is ripped clear off and Tsukiko would spin in horror. The armor wasn't empty, it was a tomb. Staring back with bulging eyes and a face twisted in sadness, the picketed scream is Tachi. Tomie hidden just brought the metal to life. She has stepped him inside the steel like a puppet to hunt Tsukiko down. The monster looked direct at Tsukiko, its many blistering eyes blinking in unison, but it doesn't strike her. Paralyzed by the sight of Tachi being crushed within the armor, Tsukiko realized this is her only window to survive. Tsukiko pulled past the carnage, her first echoing practically against the bricks. As she scrambled toward the safety, the monster warning ring in her head. She looked back at the creature, a writhing mass of torso and head. Those faces, they are all Tomie, she whispered, the realization hitting like a physical blow. The monster daughter wasn't just a victim, she was turned into a living nursery for Tomie regenerating flesh. That's why they brought me here, she realized with a shudder. They wanted to harvest my body just like hers. Behind her, the creature turned its spirit on Tachi, its palm arm wrapping around his throat until his giggling finally stopped for good. Tsukiko reached the stair, her breathing coming in a ragged gasp. She cast one final look toward the upper floor where the monster remained caged. I will be back with help, old man. Just hold on, she vows. Though the silence of the house suggests help may come too late. As she descended to the ground floor, she found a familiar figure waiting in the shadow. Tomie is leaning against the wall, watching the chaos with bored, beautiful eyes. She doesn't try to stop Tsukiko. Instead, she watched her running toward the light of the exit with a cruel, mocking smile. You are a lucky girl, Tsukiko, Tomie first. The world are chilling reminder. Tsukiko escaped the house, but in Tomie's world, luck is just a stray execution. On the floor above the creature, the monster door dragged her grotesque form toward the staircase. Her body is a living nightmare, a single rotted trunk sprouting multiple heads and mismatched limbs. She looked disgusting, yet she clearly in agony. Though she appeared to be a monster, the true monster are the one who did this to her. Below, Tsukiko stands her ground against Tomie's gaze. Your true essence on its way down now. Tsukiko won. Tomie remained unmoved. A smile played on her lips. Nice try, she replied coldly. But nothing you can say will affect me. You can't fluster me anymore. Tsukiko eyed dived to her camera sitting on nearby the table. She leaned forward, but her hand clasped onto her wrist before she even can reach it. It's Mr. Takagi, now without his mask. He stared at her with many grins, still giggling. Tsukiko, please us experiment you, he pleads. Before he can move, a massive muscular tail erupts from the shadow behind him. The creature has arrived, and its senses are sharp enough to recognize its true enemies. It ignored Tsukiko and wrapped its powerful grip around Takagi's throat, hosting him into the air. Seeing her chest, Tsukiko grabbed her camera. As the monster choked the life out of Takagi, Tsukiko began to fire the shutter. The flash burst forth like a strobe light in a frenzy. Tomie shielded her eyes, screaming in rage. Stop it! You are the worst photographer ever. Then the rest of the night is blank. Tsukiko remembered only a frantic flash throughout the dark until she found herself outside the mansion walls. By the time police arrived, the mansion was a tomb of silence, already empty. They rescued a gin monster from the second floor, but found no sign of the monster or where they had gone. Tsukiko handed over the photo from those last frantic moments. Though most were ruined by the trauma effect, however, one picture remained. It didn't capture Tomie, and it didn't capture a monster. Instead, it showed the image of a sad young woman. The monster daughter slowly fading into shadows. And just like that, the chapter ends, but it leaves a trail of dark mystery in its wake. What truly happened to Yamadaki vanishing into thin air from the hospital bed? Is the old man really safe now, or is his nightmare just beginning? And what about Mr. Takagi and Taji? Could they survive the final brutal encounter? If they are alive, where they have gone? We can only hope the upcoming chapter follow back the wheel on these secrets, but the biggest question all remains, what does Tomie actually want? We know her ego and her desire to lead men to their doom, but how deep does their hunt go, and where does she truly originate? We'll have to wait for the upcoming chapter to find out those answers. But for now, the video ends here. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.